And Colleen Lyle is the broker of record and owner of Trinity Stone Realty. She joins us this morning. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, Annette. Always nice to see you.
Okay, let's start off with this market. It has cooled off, but home values are still holding on, I understand.
They are. So as we spoke last week, I don't want people to panic because as a lot of people are hearing Toronto news, Vancouver news, Montreal news, you have to remember here in Ottawa, we get a little bit of a shelter because of the fact that we are a high-tech government town, healthcare, et cetera. So we have seen, and there was a study that came out even after 73 years, we only have seen, in 73 years, 6 price drops in all that time, and the price drop was minimal. So we are not looking at price dropping. We are just looking at a stay hold. Now, also, the one thing as well that is notorious about Ottawa and maybe even Canadians, we are in July. So we love our patios. We love ripping off those sweaters and enjoying summer at the max. And
Right.
now that COVID is sequestered to a certain degree, even though we are now at a point where we can go see family, we can go vacay, we can go to cottages and on the boat and everything else. So when I'm talking to buyers, they're like, what's going on? Or I'm talking to sellers, what's going on? It's July. And thank goodness it's July, but it's July.
We have seen decreases in Ottawa home sales for 3 consecutive months, as I understand. The value of the homes are staying up there, which is good news for sellers. Decreases in sales, what does that mean for buyers? Are they still fighting for the same home, or because we have seen a little bit more, right, coming onto the market, more inventory? Is that a good thing then, where we're at for buyers? Because it was a rough place to be a year ago as a buyer.
It was. It was very frustrating for a lot of buyers. And so thankfully, viewers and the general audience here in Ottawa has heard the call for, if you're going to sell now. And so we are seeing a lot more inventory, which is creating more of a balanced market, which is fabulous. We are still having people out there, and yet the frustration levels still run high in certain markets. So the big thing is the fact that if you're considering selling, I would sell now. If you're just waiting to see what happens to the market, then I would tell you there won't be much change. Yet with a balanced market, which is what we are in now, is something that is a win-win-win for everyone. Realtors have been asking for a real balanced market for a number of years, and we just don't control the market. And I think that's a big consideration and a big component that a lot of people don't realize. We do not, as realtors, control the market. The market controls the market, just right like supply and demand. So we are seeing more homes out there. We are seeing still a lot of traffic out in the market, even though it is July. So for that consideration, there's still a pent-up energy, even though it is still considered the spring market right now.
Let's talk about the inflation rate and where that comes in. It has a huge impact on whether or not people decide to go buy a home or move homes. We saw a lot of record lows of interest rates in the last 2 years. And so a lot of people were going out and getting a home or making a change and saying, look, at these lows, I mean, we haven't seen this. It's historical. So we've leveled off now, and those interest rates are going up and up and up. Does that mean we're going to see a slowdown? Does that impact people big time when it comes to moving, selling?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that, because so it does mentally impact people. When you see the interest rates going up, people start to panic. And to a certain consideration, absolutely, because as interest rates go up, your mortgage rate goes up. As inflation goes up, it costs more to support your family, to get groceries. And so you need to look at what your monthly costs are. So definitely that has an impact. Yet you also have to remember that the Bank of Canada has been planning for this for years and even before COVID. So we had the stress test. So when you bought a home, you you might have gotten a mortgage at a 1.5, 2.1 percentage, yet you were actually pre-approved anywhere from 5 to 7 because the Bank of Canada knew that the interest rates were not sustainable. So even though you got the lower rate, you were actually pre-approved at a higher rate. So that is what the stress test was meant to be. And so what I encourage people to do is look at actually what your pre-approval was and breathe. As we talked about the
Yeah.
last time, Annette, it was like stop, breathe, and think. Because if you are looking at purchasing a home, you're not looking to sell it next year. The goal is to give you at minimum a 5 to 7 year plan. At minimum, hopefully we find you a 10 to 15-year-old home. Sorry, 10 to 15
Your plan.
home that you will stay in. So the stress test was there in order to protect you.
Really in demand in our region.
So there's definitely two extremes here. So there are two particular homes that we are still seeing. So the beginner homes, the homes that are under, 550, let's say. So you're talking about your townhomes, your small condos, and even condo dwelling itself is very much in demand. And so if you're in that area, we are still seeing some high energy and even going into multiples as well. The other thing that we are seeing that has been a consistent uh, trend over COVID, et cetera, our recreational properties are moving out to the country because two things are happening. We have the people who are like, I'm retired, I'm done, I'm moving out to the cottage. Also, the fact that there are workers who have been told they are not going back to the workforce. And so they're like, no, I'm going to move out of the city into a country property. And so there is that. And so cottage recreational properties as well as the smaller homes. So the two extremes, yet we are still seeing a really big pent-up demand for those.
It's always traditionally been a little bit cheaper to go outside of the city proper, to go out into the country, those small towns like Renfrew and Perth and areas where, these beautiful, sweet little homes. Are they still cheap? Considered to be cheap?
No, I actually would say, the word cheap is gone. It was interestingly enough that I was out looking at cottage properties on the weekend, and there were, you're looking at Christie Lake, you're looking at Big Rideau, you're looking at Charbot, and all those homes went into multiple offers. So just because you think that you're moving out to the city doesn't mean that you're going to get a deal, right? Unless you're willing to put some work into it. We are seeing especially now being July, as we talked about earlier, people get very excited about owning a cottage property. People are like, I'm breaking out of the city. I want to go own a boat. I want to get out of the city because I've learned that my office job is secure and I don't have to work from there. So if I have, Bell 5, I can go and work from home and have waterfront property. Another big lake is the Mississippi Lake, right? So people are just on the outskirts of Ottawa, yet able to travel in if they need to.
Let's talk a little bit more along those lines with the cottage, because I think that's something a lot of people think about this time of year is if the weather's so nice, maybe they're renting a cottage or they're at a friend's cottage and they think, oh, we should do this. Let's get a cottage. Who's a good candidate for getting a cottage? When do you make that purchase? How do you make that purchase?
So there's a lot to consider with a cottage. There are many, many facet things that you need to consider. So first and foremost, when you are looking at a cottage, um, the water frontage is the crucial part, right? And so when you have water frontage, the amount of water frontage that you have will affect your tax rate. So the more lakefront, the more waterfront that you have will add to more taxes. So just note that. Also, not surprisingly, the highest demand waterfront is also with sunsets. So if you have a sunset view, that actually adds value to your home. The other thing that you need to look at with cottages is, do you have potable water? So do you have a well, or are you bringing in water? And that may affect your insurance. So recreational properties have definitely different insurance and different financing clauses than what a normal home does. So do you have a well, or are you bringing in water? Another component with cottages, is it a 2-season, 3-season, or 4-season? If it's a 4-season, then it's really a home. If it's a 3-season, then how are you protecting your pipes? Because a lot of 3-season homes do not have basements. And so how are you going to protect your pipes from freezing? Are you planning on lifting the cottage? There is so many different things that can go on with a cottage in regards to how is it built? Is it on pillars, or does it actually have a foundation yet no basement? The other thing as well is, does it have a septic, right? And if it has a septic, there are so many different rules that need to pertain. When I work with my buyers and they are looking at septic systems, there are so many different components about owning a septic. I was one of the ones that lost power for 9 days here on a septic myself, and I was teaching my neighbors what you should and should not do with a septic. And for all of those of you who might be eating your breakfast, I won't go into details, yet there are many things that you should and should not do on a septic.
A lot to learn about, a lot to think about if you want to invest in a cottage. Okay, learn some stuff there too. And just quickly, because I got to go to commercial, but I'm assuming is a 4-season more valuable than a 2-season? They usually
It depends on the water, actually, Annette.
Oh.
It depends on the water. There are some waters that are murky and just about fishing, and you really shouldn't swim in them, versus, what you want. Do you want to move to a home, or do you want to move to a cottage?
Right.
And also distance and location. Are you close to, perfect example, I've been doing a lot of cottage viewings, around Perth and Westport. So if you're really close to a great little town like them, right, then you've added value. If you are, only an hour from a great city like Kingston, then we need to take that into consideration. So,
okay. So
are you wanting a cottage?
Yeah, all those other things come into play. Screen if you'd like to contact Colleen directly. Trinity Stone Realty is the firm, trinitystonerealty.com. Colleen, let's talk interest rates a little bit there. I'm curious. They've gone up a couple times now, and it is unnerving, to say the least, for a lot of people looking in the variables. What's your feelings on that? What are you seeing out there, and how should we be cautious?
Okay, so it's a great question. It's a question on everybody's tongue. It really is. So we have to remember that the Bank of Canada has been planning for this well even before COVID. So if you recall, we had the stress test initialized several years ago. And what happened, if people understand, is the fact that even though they were getting interest rates, 1.7, 2.2, 2.6, whatever that interest rate was not what they were actually approved for. So the interest rate that they were approved for was much higher, so that the Bank of Canada could accommodate for raising their interest rates. So even though you have a very nice mortgage at 1.7, 2.2, 2.6, the fact is that you were actually approved for a much higher rate. So again, stop, breathe, think. And if you are concerned about your mortgage, if it's coming up for renewal, talk to your mortgage agent, talk to your bank,
Okay.
and see what that looks like. Yet understand that you were approved at a much higher rate.
Right.
So knowing your numbers is absolutely crucial, because there are some people out there panicking about the interest rate. And will the interest rates slow down the housing market?
Mm-hmm.
My answer is no. It's all about inventory, right?
Okay.
And finally, people are jumping on the bandwagon,
Mm-hmm.
as Annette, you and I have talked about many years. People are finally putting their homes up for sale. So it was always about inventory. It was not about interest rates.
Okay, we do have a question. We have just a few seconds to get to it. Dennis writes, what do you expect to see in the luxury home market? Homes over $1 million, $2 million. They're going to be affected in terms of valuation and the decrease in the market. So essentially, are they going to be coming down too?
Well, that's a great question. And I would say, like everyone, there might be a reduction slightly in the luxury market. Yet, 1 million, as much as that makes people cringe, is almost the average right now. And so I would go back to Dennis saying, do you have a marketing plan? Do you have a really good realtor?
Mm-hmm.
Does your home show well? Right? And so we will see just a slowdown generally of a more balanced market. Yet if your home is marketed well, shows well, we are still seeing the luxury market sell well. So it depends on different variable, yet understand that there is a concern about affordability right now that I'm hoping people will calm down
Yeah.
on, because the fact is that I don't want anyone stop, stop, breathe and think about affordability. We understand that groceries are more
Right.
affected,
It all
that
comes
gas
into
is more
play.
affected.
Yeah, it all
It
comes
all
into
comes
play.
out to
Yeah,
play.
for sure.
Yet if you're looking at a $2 million house, you're okay.
Yeah. All right. Colleen Lyle from Trinity Stone Realty. If you'd like to give her a call or send her an email, all the information right there up on your screen. Thanks, Colleen.